The fluorescent lights of the office hallway hummed with a sterile, forgotten familiarity. Shona, or Nana as they called her then, pressed her palm against the cool wall, the solid surface a stark contrast to the phantom ache in her bones that had defined her final years. Her reflection in the polished glass of a conference room door was that of a stranger, a ghost of her younger self. The face was unlined, the skin vibrant, the eyes clear of the weary resignation that had clouded them on her deathbed. 12 years, she had been thrown back 12 years, to the very beginning of a wave of nausea, sharp and real, churned in her stomach. It wasn't just the temporal whiplash, it was him. Nana, honey, are you okay? Chongchun's voice, thick with a saccharine concern she now recognized as poison, slithered into her ear. He placed a hand on her arm, his touch of brown she wanted to scrape from her skin. In her first life, that touch had been her world. Now, it was a reminder of the mountain of debt he'd left her, the career he'd sabotaged, and the lonely, sterile hospital room where she had drawn her last breath while he vacationed with her best friend. The memories, sharp as glass shards, tore through the fog of her disbelief. Shona recalled, pulling her arm away as if burned. She turned to face him, a gaze so cold it made him flinch. The boyish charm she once found irresistible now looked like a cheap, predatory mask. "Don't call me that," she said, her voice flat and devoid of emotion. Chong Jun blinked, his brow furrowing in practiced confusion. "Honey, what's wrong? You look pale. Did you work too hard on the Q3 proposal? Let's break up," Shona stated. The words were not an emotional plea, but a clinical severance. A verdict. The air between them went still. Chongchun's jaw dropped, a flicker of genuine shock crossing his face before being replaced by wounded theatrics. "What? Nana, what are you talking about? Is this a joke? If it's about me being late this morning, I swear the traffic was." "It's not a joke," she cut in, her patience a finite resource she refused to waste on him again. She remembered every lie, every hollow promise. She remembered him weeping at her bedside, not with grief, but with frustration that her medical bills were draining the accounts he was secretly siphoning. "I'm ending it, no," he said, his voice rising with desperation as he reached for her again. "Nana, you can't. We love each other. Whatever I did, I'm sorry. Just give me another chance to make it right." Shona sidestepped his grasp, her expression unyielding. "Your chances ran out a long time ago. Longer than you know." Her gaze swept over his rumpled shirt and the faint, self-satisfied smirk that always lingered at the corner of his mouth. "And in the office, you will address me as team leader Zhang. We are colleagues, nothing more." Her pronouncement hung in the air, a declaration of war he couldn't yet comprehend. As his face twisted in a mask of bewildered fury, a presence shifted at the edge of their conflict. A tall, impeccably dressed man emerged from the executive suite, his footsteps silent on the polished floor. His tailored charcoal suit seemed to absorb the harsh office lighting, and his features were sharp and defined, carrying an air of quiet, indisputable authority. It was Boss Pei, the enigmatic CEO who had founded the company from nothing. His dark eyes, deep and unreadable, flickered over them for a fraction of a second, a glance so brief it was almost imagined. Yet Shona felt seen, dissected. He didn't slow his stride, but as he passed, his voice, a low and smooth baritone, cut through the tension. "Team leader Zhang," he said, a simple acknowledgement that held more weight than Chongchun's hour of pleading. "My driver is downstairs. I'm heading east if you require a ride." It wasn't a question. It was a statement, an offer that was also an exit. Shona gave a slight, formal nod. The saccharine sweetness in Pluming's voice was a familiar poison. "Shona, you simply have to come to the class reunion. Everyone is dying to see how you're doing." Shona held the phone away from her ear, the cawing tone making her skin crawl. Dying to see if I'm still the same pathetic girl they can mock, she thought, her mind flashing back to a past life filled with whispered insults and orchestrated humiliations. Tianming's favorite trick was to corner her and loudly comment on her cheap clothes or accessories. This time, Shona was ready, of course. Pyoming, I wouldn't miss it, she replied, her voice a placid lake over a churning sea of calculation. Before leaving her modest apartment, she opened her jewelry box, ignoring the few simple, tasteful pieces she owned. Her fingers closed around the pair of gaudy, oversized pearl earrings she bought from a street stall for a few dollars. They were perfect, obvious fakes, a perfect bait for a piranha like Pyoming. She clipped them on, the cheap metal cold against her skin, and looked at her reflection. This was her armor. As she stepped out into the lobby, a sleek, black Bentley purred to a stop at the curb, a silent panther in the concrete jungle. The window slid down, revealing Boss Pei's chiseled profile. He regarded her for a moment, his gaze sharp and unreadable, flickering from her face down to the ostentatious earrings. Get in, he said, his voice a low command, not a request. Confused but compelled, Shona slid into the plush leather seat. The car smelled of sandalwood and quiet power. Without a word, he held out a small, velvet box. Inside, nestled on a bed of black silk, lay a pair of Chanel earrings. They weren't flashy, but their quiet elegance screamed authenticity. Interlocking seats paved with miniature diamonds that caught the light with a fiery brilliance. A limited edition, he stated, his eyes fixed on hers. They will suit you better. He didn't ask about the fakes. He didn't need to. It was as if he could see the entire chessboard, anticipating Pyoming's move and making his own counterplay through her. A shiver of something unidentifiable, gratitude, fear, fascination ran down her spine. Wordlessly, she unclipped the cheap fakes, dropping them into her purse, and fastened the cool weight of the genuine article to her lobes. The diamonds felt like tiny stars against her skin. The reunion was exactly as she predicted, held in the gaudy private room of an expensive restaurant. It was a theater of false smiles and veiled condescension. Pyoming, dripping in designer labels, made a beeline for her, a pack of their old classmates trailing behind her like hyenas. Shona, so good to see you. Pyoming's eyes immediately darted to Shona's ears. Her smile widened, a predatory gleam in her eyes. This was the moment. Oh, I just love your earrings. So unique. Did you get them from that little store near the old campus? The circle of onlookers tittered, their expressions a mixture of pity and smug superiority. Shona smiled calmly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear to give them a better view. They were a gift. She let the diamonds catch the light, a silent, brilliant rebuttal. The air shifted, the whispers changed from mockery to awe. One of the girls, a known luxury aficionado, gasped, "Wait a minute, that's the Chanel et al. Filanti collection. They're sold out everywhere. My dad tried to get me a pair for my birthday and couldn't." Pyoming's face froze, her painted smile cracking. The humiliation she had so carefully prepared was ricocheting back at her. Before she could recover, a smooth, charming voice cut through the tension. "Shona, is that you?" A handsome man with a warm smile approached, his tailored suit accentuating his tall frame. It was Gu Yahayan, a popular senior she'd barely known in school. "You look incredible. Head of design at Pei Corporation, right? I've been following your work. It's brilliant." He glanced at Pyoming, his smile tightening fractionally. "Pyoming, are you still trying to pass off knockoffs as your own designs?" "Some things never change." The jab was surgical. Pyoming paled, utterly flustered as Senior Gu turned his full attention back to Shona, his praise for her recent work loud enough for everyone to hear. Shona caught the faint, knowing glint in his eye and understood. This wasn't a coincidence. This, too, was Boss Pei's hand at work. The victory, however, was short-lived. Later that night, as Shona entered her apartment lobby, a hand shot out of the shadows, grabbing her arm in a brutal grip. Chung-jun. His face was a mask of contorted rage, his eyes wild. "Where were you?" he snarled, shoving her against the cold marble wall. The impact sent a shock of pain through her back. "Who was that man who dropped you off? You think you're too good for me now? Huh? Flirting with some rich bastard in a fancy car?" He wasn't asking for an explanation. He was looking for a justification for his violence. His grip tightened, fingers digging into the flesh of her arm like claws. "You think you can just leave me, betray me?" He raised his hand, and she flinched, bracing for the inevitable strike. The blow never landed, a blur of motion, and Chung-jun was ripped away from her. Boss Pei stood between them, his expression glacial. He held Chung-jun by the front of his shirt, effortlessly lifting him inches off the ground. "Don't touch her," he bit out, each word a shard of ice. Chung-jun struggled, his face turning purple with rage and lack of air. "Who the hell are you? This is between me and my girlfriend." The commotion attracted the attention of two security guards, who ambled over with a distinct lack of urgency. They took in the scene: a well-dressed man holding a disheveled one, a frightened young woman leaning against the wall. Hey, what's all this?" one of them asked, his tone bored. Chung-jun, seeing an out, immediately played the victim. "This guy attacked me, we were just having a disagreement. It's a private matter." The guard looked from Boss Pei's expensive suit to Chung-chun's frantic expression, and then to a shaken Shona. He sighed, a world-weary sound. "Look, it's just a young couple's fight. We see it all the time. Just take it upstairs and don't cause a scene in the lobby." They turned and walked away, dismissing the raw violence as a trivial lover's quarrel. The indifference was a slap in the face, a chilling confirmation of her isolation. No one would help her. The system was designed to look the other way. Boss Pei released Chung-jun, who stumbled back, gasping for air before scurrying away like a rat, shouting empty threats over his shoulder. Pei turned to Shona, his eyes scanning the blooming bruises on her arm. The cold fury on his face softened into something akin to concern. But Shona barely saw him. She stared at the spot where the guards had stood, the throbbing pain in her arm a dull echo of the cold, hard realization solidifying in her heart. In her past life, she had tried to break up with Chung-jun. He had refused to let her go, and his obsession had ended in a death. Now, seeing the guard's dismissal, she knew nothing had changed. She couldn't just leave him. She couldn't call for help. A simple breakup would be a death sentence. A chilling clarity cut through her fear. "I can't break up with him," she thought, her hands clenching into fists. "He has to be the one to end it. I have to make him hate me, discard me, and walk away on his own. It's the only way I'll survive." The whisper campaign started subtly, a venomous mist seeping into the office air. Shona caught snippets by the coffee machine. In the elevator, hushed words about her mother's supposed infidelity, her loose reputation. The implication was clear: a poison arrow aimed directly at her. Like mother, like daughter, Pyoming was behind it. Of course, her best friend's sweet smile was the perfect mask for a serpent's tongue. But Shona had no time to fight shadows. A far colder reality had just been handed to her on a sheet of clinical letterhead. She sat at the worn dining table of her family home, the thin paper in her hands feeling heavier than a tombstone. The words swam before her eyes: metastatic, terminal. She had come home hoping for a sanctuary, for a shred of comfort in the face of annihilation. Her mother didn't even look up from counting receipts. "So, what did the doctor say? Is it something expensive?" Shona's voice was a dry rasp. "It's cancer, Mum, stage 4. She watched for a flicker of concern, a crack in the indifferent facade. Nothing. The doctor said maybe 6 months. Her mother finally looked at her, her eyes scanning Shona not as a daughter, but as a depreciating asset. 6 months, she repeated, her tone sharp with irritation, not grief. Don't be ridiculous. You can't stop working. The mortgage is due. And your brother needs his allowance. You think this family runs on air? The casual cruelty of it sucked the breath from Shona's lungs. It wasn't just a lack of love. It was a complete absence of humanity. She was a machine designed to produce money, and her only fault was that she was breaking down ahead of schedule. I'm dying, she whispered, the words tasting like ash. People get sick all the time. Her mother scoffed, turning back to her papers. Don't be so dramatic. Just take your medicine and get back to work. We're counting on you. That was it. The last, fragile thread connecting her to this family snapped. She felt the profound, chilling emptiness wash over her. She was utterly, irrevocably alone. These people wouldn't mourn her. They would be inconvenienced by her absence. This wasn't a home. It was a cage she had to escape before it became her grave. Later that night, unable to breathe in the suffocating silence of her room, she stepped into the hallway. A low murmur drifted from her brother's bedroom, where her ex-boyfriend, Chung Jun, often stayed. She recognized his slick, oily voice, and then another Pyoming's, tinny and distorted through the phone speaker. Is she telling them? Pyoming asked. Not yet. Chung Jun grunted, still playing the victim. But listen, we need to move fast. I looked into it. A life insurance policy, if we get her to sign, with her condition. The payout could be huge. I'll be the beneficiary. Obviously. You'll get your cut once it's done. A cold dread, sharp and invasive as a surgeon's scalpel, pierced Shona's heart. They weren't just waiting for her to die. They were planning to profit from it. Her best friend and the man she once loved, plotting to turn her death into a payday. The realization didn't bring tears. It brought a terrifying clarity. She backed away from the door, her movements silent, her mind a whirlwind of ice and fire. The next morning, Shona walked into the boardroom with a composure forged in the deepest pits of betrayal. The personal attacks had been devastating, but they had also stripped her of all fear. She had nothing left to lose. In her hands was the MasterChef proposal, a project she had poured hundreds of hours into, her one chance to carve out a legacy for herself. She delivered her presentation flawlessly. The slides were crisp, the market analysis was sharp, and her vision for the culinary competition was innovative and compelling. The executives murmured their approval. For a fleeting moment, a spark of professional pride warmed her. This was her work, her talent. Vice President Fong, a man whose face was a permanent mask of neutral corporate interest, cleared his throat. Excellent work, Shona. Truly, the board is very impressed. We are green-lighting the MasterChef project. Effective immediately. A fragile sense of relief bloomed in Shona's chest. However, Fong continued, his gaze flicking for a split second toward the door. Due to some internal restructuring and other arrangements, we will be assigning a new main creator to spearhead the execution. The air turned ice. Shona's blood ran cold. A sickening wave of déjà vu crashed over her, so potent it made her dizzy. It's happening again. Just like before. This was the exact moment, the exact maneuver Pyoming had used in her past life to steal her work and climb the ladder on her achievements. As if on cue, the boardroom door opened. Pyoming walked in, dressed in a sharp power suit, a triumphant, predatory smile gracing her lips. She moved to the front of the room, taking the spot beside Fong as if she owned it. The sterile quiet of Boss Pei's office was a universe away from the storm raging inside Shona. She stood before his expansive mahogany desk, not as a subordinate, but as a soldier demanding munitions. The city lights glittered like a fallen constellation behind him, but her focus was solely on the man whose silhouette was a study in contained power. He hadn't spoken since she entered, merely gesturing to the chair she'd refused to take. His patience was a weapon in itself, disarming and absolute. Shona broke the silence first, her voice steady despite the tremor in her soul. The charity dinner, the leaked documents, the alley. Every time I'm cornered, you appear. Why, Boss Pay? She took a step closer, her eyes searching his for a crack in his inscrutable facade. It's beyond coincidence. I need to know why you're always there just in time. A flicker of something amusement, perhaps, or something deeper crossed his features before vanishing. Perhaps, he said, his voice a low baritone that seemed to vibrate through the floor. I simply have an interest in seeing talent protected. Talent, she repeated, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. My greatest project was just stolen, showcased to the world by the two people who tried to ruin me. My talent feels more like a curse right now. The pain was a raw, physical ache in her chest, but she refused to let it break her. She straightened her spine. But I'm not here for pity. I'm done being a victim. I will fight back. And I will do it in my own way. His eyes narrowed slightly, a sign of genuine interest. And what way is that? This was it, the precipice. Feng Yuan is the new ambassador for the live broadcast of the Chef God competition tonight. He'll be praised, celebrated for a concept he stole. I want that celebration to become his public execution. She leaned forward, her hands gripping the edge of his desk. I need you to allocate a massive promotional budget for the event. I want every mainstream media outlet, every major news blog, every influential streamer covering it. I want the entire nation watching when his world comes crashing down. She expected negotiation, questions, perhaps even a refusal. Instead, Boss Pei simply reached for the intercom on his desk, his gaze never leaving hers. Leo, he commanded, his tone leaving no room for argument. Contact our media partners, all of them. I want a prime-time, multi-platform saturation for the Chef God broadcast tonight. Spare no expense. I want a media footprint so large it eclipses the national news. He paused. And give Shona's pre-approved list of journalists priority access. He clicked off the intercom. The entire exchange took less than 30 seconds. Shona stared, momentarily speechless. The sheer speed and scale of his power were breathtaking. This wasn't the action of a mere company director. This was the command of an emperor, the kind of influence that didn't just request media coverage, it owned it. A chilling realization washed over her. She had no idea who this man truly was. Why would someone with this level of power invest so much in protecting a nobody like her? The mystery of him deepened, a compelling and dangerous puzzle she felt herself being drawn into. Hours later, the stage of the Chef God competition was a blaze of theatrical light and manufactured applause. Feng Yuan stood at the center, preening in a tailored suit, the very picture of undeserved success. He held the microphone with a proprietary air, smiling his plastic, camera-ready smile. True culinary creation, he pontificated to the host, his voice using false humility, is a marriage of wisdom and beauty. It is about seeing a need and crafting an elegant solution, a vision I have championed from the very beginning, from a private viewing suite high above the city. Shona watched the monitor, her hands clenched into fists. Boss Pei stood silently beside her, her shadow offering silent, unwavering support. Just as the host began to shower Feng Yuan with more praise, the massive screen behind them flickered. The smiling logo of the competition vanished, replaced by a grid of solemn, professional faces, the journalists from Shona's list, a live and scheduled video connection. A hush fell over the studio audience. Feng Yuan's smile faltered. A sharp-faced female reporter spoke first. her voice cutting through the stunned silence. Mr. Fong, congratulations on your appointment. Could you clarify for our viewers your professional relationship with Pyoming, the project manager who approved your vision and who, records show, received a significant and undeclared financial transfer from you 2 days prior? Fong Yuan paled. That's a private matter. Another journalist jumped in, his tone relentless. Perhaps you could then explain how Zhang Shona's meticulously detailed proposal, time-stamped and submitted a month before yours, contains identical market analysis, branding strategies, and even the same tagline. We have copies of both, Mr. Fong. The resemblance isn't just striking, it's verbatim. Panic flashed in Fong Yuan's eyes. He looked desperately toward the wings. But the producers were frozen, caught in the media blitz Boss Pei had orchestrated. Mr. Fong, a third journalist pressed, her voice dripping with contempt. Sources from your former company speak of unspoken rules for advancement. Could you elaborate on the moral bankruptcy required to steal a junior's work and present it as your own? Turn it off. Cut the feed. Fong Yuan shrieked into his microphone, his composure shattering completely. He lunged for the camera operator, but it was too late. The dam had broken. On screen, his pathetic attempts to silence the media were broadcast to millions. In the audience, a camera found Pyoming, her face a mask of ash and horror as her phone lit up with a torrent of notifications. The expose was already trending. Fong Yuan theft fraud. Justice for Jianchen. His career wasn't just crashing, it was being vaporized on a national platform. In the quiet of the viewing suite, Shona watched the beautiful, complete destruction of the man who had tormented her. A long, shuddering breath escaped her lungs, a breath she felt she'd been holding for a lifetime. It was the release of every insult, every act of sabotage, every moment of humiliation. The foul, stagnant air of injustice was finally expelled, replaced by the clean, sharp taste of vindication. Her name was cleared. Her truth was told. She felt a single, hot tear trace a path down her cheek. It wasn't a tear of sadness, but of profound, cathartic relief. The war was not over, but this battle, this glorious, public battle, was decisively won. The office air, once thick with tension from her confrontation with Nana, had thinned into a fragile silence. Zhang Shona stood in a quiet corner near the panoramic windows, the city lights below blurring into a watercolor smear. She felt drained, yet a strange current of victory hummed beneath her skin. Boss Pei approached, his steps silent on the plush carpet, stopping a respectful distance away. He wasn't her superior in that moment, but something else entirely, an anchor. He gazed out at the sprawling metropolis, his reflection a stoic silhouette against the glass. The city's neon signs are bright, he said, his voice a low, contemplative hum, but they can't outshine the galaxy I see in your eyes. Shona froze. The words, poetic and achingly familiar, sent a jolt through her system. They were from Confession Balloon, a ballad that wouldn't be released for another 2 years, a song that had become an anthem for survivors, a melody she had clung to in the darkest hours of her previous life. Her head snapped toward him, her eyes wide with a dawning, impossible question. That song, she whispered, her voice trembling. It hasn't been released yet. How do you know it? Boss Pei turned to face her fully, his expression unreadable, but for the profound sorrow in his eyes. The mask of the enigmatic CEO finally fell away, revealing a man who looked as though he'd carried the weight of a lifetime or two. Because I've heard it before, he answered, his voice gentle but firm. Just like you've lived this before. The world tilted on its axis. Every one of his timely appearances, his uncanny understanding, his inexplicable protection, it all clicked into place. He hadn't just been observant. He had been knowledgeable. He knew. The breath left her lungs in a ragged gasp. He was like her. Shona, he said. taking a careful step closer, his gaze locking with hers. I like you. In my last life, I was too late to do anything but watch you suffer from afar. This time, I won't be. I can protect you. Please, believe me. The dam of her composure, already cracked, shattered completely. Tears she hadn't allowed herself to shed streamed down her face, not of sorrow, but of a devastating, soul-deep relief. Here was someone who understood the invisible scars she carried, the phantom pains of a life cruelly cut short. He, Chong-jun, she choked out, the confession tearing from her throat. In that life, he didn't just break my spirit, his hands, his rage. They were the reason my death ending came prematurely. The words tasted like poison, but they had to be said. His mother knew. She watched, she encouraged it. Boss Pei's jaw clenched, a flicker of cold fury in his eyes. But his hands remained steady at his sides. He didn't touch her, respecting the boundary of her trauma. But his presence was a fortress. Never again, he vowed, his voice raw with conviction. I swear to you, Shona, I will not let you repeat that fate. Your future is yours to write, and I will be here to hold the pen with you. That night, back in the sanctuary of her small apartment, Shona felt a shift deep within her. The fear that had been her constant shadow began to recede, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. She opened her laptop, the screen illuminating her determined face. Her past life's misery had one silver lining: a flawless memory of the stock market's trajectory. She logged into her modest brokerage account, her fingers flying across the keyboard. With practiced confidence, she liquidated her minor holdings and poured every last cent into two obscure tech startups, Sunung and Alima. They were gambles to the rest of the world, but to her, they were certainties. Within days, her initial investment quadrupled, then grew tenfold. The numbers on the screen were more than money. They were wings. They were freedom. Her phone rang, Jongchun's name flashing on the screen. Before, her heart would have seized with dread. Now, she felt nothing but a distant pity. She answered, her voice calm and level. Shona, where have you been? I've been calling. It's over, June. She cut in, her tone leaving no room for argument. The shock on the other end was palpable. Your possessiveness, your mother who stood by and watched you become a monster. I'm done with all of it. This is the last time you will ever hear my voice. Lose this number. She ended the call before he could utter a single word, blocking his number without a second thought. A profound lightness filled her chest. The chains of her past, her abusive ex, her parasitic family had dissolved into dust. She was no longer a victim cowering in the ruins of her life. She was the architect of a new one. A soft knock came at her door. It was Boss Pei, holding a small box of warm pastries. He didn't ask what she had done. He already knew. He simply stood there, a silent, unwavering pillar of support. I've made some arrangements, he said softly, his eyes searching hers for any sign of distress. A new apartment, unlisted, a security detail if you want it, anything you need. He paused, his gaze softening. Where do you want to go from here, Shona? She looked at this man who had crossed the boundary of death to find her. You saw not a broken girl, but a resilient woman. She took the box of pastries, their warmth seeping into her hands, and smiled a genuine, unfettered smile for the first time into lifetimes. A sense of peace settled over her, quiet and absolute. Her fate was no longer a terrifying inevitability. It was an open road, and for the first time, she wasn't walking it alone.